Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Maddie Strom. I'm currently a Policy and Programs Fellow at the Committee of 70, and we are welcoming you today to another Philly Youth Vote candidate interview. And we're really excited today to have Bryan Neft, who is a candidate for Pennsylvania Superior Court. And we have some students from Central High School who are going to be conducting this interview today. So we're really excited to get started. I'm going to share some slides to get us ready to go.
Hi, Mr. Neft. Thanks for joining us. I'm Tom Quinn. I teach at Central High School. This is my social science class and some members of the Central High School voter registration team. And this is a part of a series of interviews we've been doing with candidates for the past couple of election cycles to connect the candidates with the students and the students to the candidates. So you can hear what their issues and concerns are, and they can hear what your positions are. Next slide, please, Maddie. Thanks. So I'm going to introduce you. This is Bryan Neft, Democratic candidate for Superior Court. And we're going to turn it over to the students. And if you want to just close the slides and then, yes, there we go. And then if we can have it on kind of speaker view, that would be great. Hello, Mr. Neff. How are you?
How are you all today?
We're doing just fine. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to see all the students that are here. I think this is a great thing that you're doing, and I'm just really grateful to be here. So thank you.
Well, great, thank you. We're going to ask you about 5 or 6 questions, and I'm going to just turn it over to the students, and they're going to take it away.
Okay.
So Rachel, you're first.
Hi, Mr. Neff. My name is Rachel Thornton, and I'm a senior at Central High School. And I wanted to know what qualifies you to be a judge beyond a law degree?
It's really the culmination of everything that I've done in my career. So let me tell you a little bit about my my career path, and then I'll tell you about some of the things that I've done outside of my career path. So I've been practicing for 31 years, primarily in Pittsburgh. When I first returned to Pittsburgh from after law school, I clerked for a judge on the Pennsylvania Superior Court. His name was Bill Sircone. And I was with Judge Sircone for 4 years, where I drafted opinions and memoranda for him for the cases that he was assigned to on all of the types of cases that go before the Pennsylvania Superior Court. And it might be helpful just to tell the audience what the Superior Court does. The Superior Court is an intermediate appellate court in Pennsylvania. And for most people, it's really going to be the first court, which is you have a right of appeal to, and the last court. Because the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, while it sits on top of everything, doesn't always take cases. And so the Superior Court may be the only opportunity to appeal. And it handles things that, you know, the average citizen deals with. You know, one thing that affects all of us, no matter who we are, is crime. And the criminal appeals come before the Superior Court. But in addition to that, all family law matters go before the Superior Court, and juvenile matters. Things like wills and estates and trusts, real property disputes, breaches of contract, and what I call like personal injury matters or product liability cases, something that, you know, the average citizen might have in a case that goes before the court. You know, those are the types of cases that go before the Superior Court. And I've had experience drafting opinions and memoranda in those areas. And in my private practice, for the last 25 years, I practiced in all of those areas. So that's kind of it in a nutshell as to what my experience level is from my practice perspective. But I've also done a lot in the community to, you know, sort of help raise the community. You know, I'm Jewish, and in my faith, we have a saying called, or a tenet called tikkun olam, which means to repair the world. And I take that very seriously, and it's something that I've tried to live by. So let me just tell you about some of the things that I've done. You know, we have a grassroots campaign that's part of our bar association called Attorneys Against Hunger. And we use that to raise, you know, thousands of dollars every year for hunger relief around Allegheny County, where I'm from, which is Pittsburgh. And, you know, when I took over that campaign, we were regularly raising about $25,000 a year for hunger relief. And I was a committee of one, and I went to all of our sections and committees and talked to members, got them energized on hunger relief and why it was so important. I got people out to see the different agencies that we were supporting, and we raised that number to about $115,000 a year. And since the campaign started, we've raised over $2 million for hunger relief. And as I say, no child should ever be hungry, and no family should ever be insecure in their food needs. So I'm proud of that effort. And I've been a leader in the local bar association here, and actually on a statewide level as well. But some of the things that I've done, I've served on what's called our gender bias subcommittee in the Bar Association. And that committee fields confidential complaints from individuals that believe they've suffered bias in our profession of law or in the judiciary. And we're just made up of a committee of people that want to do the right thing, committee of judges and practitioners. And we field these complaints and we evaluate them, and we talk to the complainant about options if there's something to go forward with. And with their consent, we go to the offending source and we tell them they're wrong. We tell them they need to rectify the situation, and we tell them they need to atone for the situation through education or otherwise. And in that regard, we've gone to judges and other lawyers in Allegheny County and other counties where our own lawyers are involved to speak truth to power, because it's necessary. Because there's no place for bias or discrimination in the profession of law, in the judicial system, or in society. And one other thing that I've done is I've really worked hard for what I call access to justice. Many people have many impediments to coming to court for many reasons. Some are societal. For example, if you don't have the means of transportation to get to a courthouse because you want to have your case argued, or you can't afford a lawyer. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court appointed to me what's called its IOLTA board, and it's a charitable arm of the Supreme Court that provides state funding to legal service agencies across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania that provide legal services to those who can't afford it. And that includes Community Legal Services, which is an agency that exists in Philadelphia to provide just those services. And there are a lot of others too. But I'm committed to providing access to justice and making sure that we can maximize the number of people that get legal services when they need it. I spent 3 years in law school and then a lifetime learning how to practice and make arguments on behalf of clients. Somebody who has to go it alone at court by themselves without that kind of training is at a significant disadvantage. So I believe that we need to expand access to justice, and my role as a judge, should be one to try to do that. I say first and foremost, a judge is a public servant, but just as importantly, a judge has to be a leader and a role model and provide those, the help that's needed to help the community. So those are the reasons why I think that I'm qualified for the judge of the Pennsylvania Superior Court.
Thank you. And you kind of touched on my second question, but how would you describe your educational and professional journey? And if it came down to it, would you do it all over?
That's an interesting question. Let me tell you about my background, my history first. So I went to college at the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia, which I loved, and I love being in Philadelphia. And I went to law school at Boston University School of Law. And the reason that I went to law school was because my mom was my inspiration. When I was in high school, she gave up a career as a home economics teacher and decided she wanted to become a lawyer. And she went to Duquesne University's night school, which is a local law school in Pittsburgh, when I was maybe a junior in high school. And every day she had our breakfast ready and our lunches ready, and dinner was waiting for us in the fridge when we got home. And she would go study and then go off to classes. And I got the opportunity to see her in a classroom setting when I go to pick her up in the evenings. She had study groups at our house where all the students would get together and they would talk about the cases that they were studying, and they would go back and forth on what the issues were. And it was really, it's that opportunity when law students learn how to argue cases. And I really got hooked on the law just by observing all of that. And that was my reason for going to law school. And as I say, it's been a really grateful experience because my mom still practices today. And we frequently get on the phone and talk about, legal issues that we're dealing with and try to help each other where we can. So it's been a really grateful experience. Rachel, tell me, the second part of the question was, would I do it all over again? Yeah,
Yes.
I think I would probably do it all over again. It's funny though, being in Pittsburgh, the two prominent law schools are Pitt and Duquesne, and I've become very familiar with them during the course of my career, and I become very fond of both of them. And so I'd say if I was going to do anything different, I might have gone to one of those schools as opposed to going to Boston University. But I'm really happy for the education that I got at Boston.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up we have Matthew. You ready?
Yep. So my name is Matthew Wijaya. Nice to meet you, Mr. Neff.
Nice to meet you, Matthew.
And my question revolves around equality in the courtroom. And it's, do the courts deal effectively with racial and gender bias? Why or why not?
I've dealt with this issue a lot during my career and during the work that I've done through the Bar Association. I will tell you, if it was dealt with effectively, we wouldn't have the gender bias subcommittee that I sit on and that we've continued to sit on. And bias isn't just gender bias. There are racial biases. There are a lot of biases out there. And, what we're dealing with now and trying to educate everybody on is implicit bias, which are those biases we don't even recognize may be a force in what we're doing. And I've been an advocate on training our judges and our practitioners on implicit bias. I've done that training myself on several occasions. And one of the programs that we came up with through our Bar Association was to have a mandatory implicit bias component to all continuing legal education programs that are approved for judges to take. And I know that the judges are taking those classes seriously and trying to learn more about implicit biases because, they all exist, we all have them, and we all have to be able to acknowledge them so that they don't impact anything that happens with the court. And I will tell you, 9 times out of 10, I think judges do the right thing in trying to work on a case and trying to understand who the parties are that are in the case. But at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter who the parties are. What matters is everybody gets the same rights when they come to court, and they get the same full and fair opportunity to be heard, and they get the same full and fair access to the judicial system. And that's the most important thing. Bias, like I said, still exists. And we had an instance in Allegheny County within the last 2 years of not implicit bias, but overt bias. And we had a judge that resigned because of that. And it's terrible when something like that happens. And we all need to be cognizant of it, and we all need to call it out when it happens.
Thank you, Mr. Neff.
Thank you.
Crystal, you ready? And
Hi,
then
Mr.
we have
Neff.
Spish come
Hi,
down.
Crystal.
My name is Crystal. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
One question I have for you today is around Matthew's question of equality, but it's how will you ensure equality for people of all backgrounds in your courtroom?
So I think it really comes from the heart. That's the first thing, that everybody comes into the courtroom and everybody is equal in the eyes of the court. We've talked about it. We talk about judicial scales. I don't know if you've ever heard the expression, but the scales of justice. And as I explain it, and I'm trying to get it online, everybody comes to court equal. And it's the application of the law to the facts of the case as it's developed that alters the scale one way or the other. It's not who the parties are, okay? But and that's how a decision is to be made. It's to be made based upon the rule of law and how it applies to the facts as they're presented in the case. When we talk about, equality in the courtroom, there's no doubt that I will treat everybody that comes into my courtroom in a fair and impartial manner. But there are still, as I said before, impediments to what we call access to justice, whether it's that somebody doesn't have the resources to get to the courthouse or somebody doesn't have, access to an attorney. And those are things that I will continue to work hard to push for, because the administration of justice doesn't work properly if people don't have the representation that they need in court. It's something that I've worked for, as I said before, when I was on the Pennsylvania IOLTA board and when I chaired that board. And it's something that I continue to work on strongly, and will use my position as a judge to work harder for.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Bishek Still.
How are you? How do you pronounce your first name?
This is Bishek. It's Polish.
Okay, very nice to meet you, Zbishev.
Don't worry about it.
I'm butchering it. I'm sorry.
You're good. What pro bono and community services are you a part of, and what is your role?
So,
I mean, I've heard you about your committees and stuff, but the pro bono.
okay, so the pro bono stuff that I've worked on, I've been part of what we call protection from abuse matters, and I've volunteered to help individuals that need to get protection from abuse matters. If you're familiar with that, it's somebody who needs an order to stop somebody else from basically harassing them and stalking them if they believe that they are a threat to that person. So I've worked hard for that. I've also worked to create various pro bono programs. So when I was we have a section in our bar association called the civil litigation section, and there was our judges were observing problems that we were having with tenants that were being brought into court and needed representation in landlord-tenant matters, and making sure they understood their rights when they had to appeal from a lower court up to a higher court. So I worked hard to put together a pro bono program that would provide those individuals with sort of the representation and the insight they needed in order to be able to navigate the system. Those are just a couple of things that I've been involved with. I've also been involved with, every now and then we have legal clinics that are in different areas of the city. And you just go in and you talk to people, they come in with their legal problems and you guide them. And if you can't guide them, you find somebody who can help them with it.
Thank you.
Your question?
Shayla, do you have a question?
Sure. Hello, my name is Shayla Stria, and I'm a part of Central's voter registration team. And so my question is, how will you balance being an independent judge and an elected official, and how will you handle other conflicts of interest that may arise while you're on the bench?
That's an excellent question. Thank you. So the system we're dealt with here is that if you're running for statewide election, you have to run as a partisan, and you talk to the voters about your qualification and what makes you unique and what makes you best suited to be a judge on the appellate courts. But partisanship and political issues bear no impact on a judicial decision making. What happens is when you have, everything starts at the trial court level, or even maybe lower than that at the magisterial level. And it's up to the parties to sort of create a record that helps decide the case. They put on, parties put on evidence, and based on the evidence that's presented, then the judge or the jury in any particular instance makes the decision based on the evidence that's presented. And then when it comes up on appeal, the question becomes, is the evidence sufficient to support the verdict? Or, was there an error of law that somehow impacted the outcome of the case? But it's not based on any political considerations. It's based upon the record that's established, that the parties established down below, based on the court rulings down below, and then based on what the law says about that. And so the judge's role, especially at the appellate level, is to research the pertinent law, whether it comes from the legislature that passes the statutes that we all have to follow, or whether it comes from the Supreme Court or other precedent that we follow, and that guides us into making the decisions as to how a case should be decided. There's no role for any political considerations. You brought up a different point, which is how would I deal with conflicts of interest? So, we've talked. There are many ways that a conflict of interest can come up. One is from people that maybe made significant contributions to my campaign. And I have to be cognizant of all those people that come before me. You have to look at the briefs, you have to look and see who the parties are and determine, is this something that I should be recusing myself from? Best example is, let's say my wife has a lawsuit and that comes up on appeal and it gets assigned to me. I would automatically recuse myself from that because that would be an automatic conflict of interest. There are other examples where conflict of interest come, but a judge always has to be cognizant of what constitutes that conflict of interest and make sure that the parties that are before the court don't cause a conflict of interest. And the quick answer is, if there is a conflict of interest, you have to recuse yourself and not consider the case.
That's so interesting. I wonder if having a partisan election of judges in Pennsylvania creates more of an opportunity for conflicts of interests.
I don't know that it creates more opportunities for it. I mean, you know, we talk about the partisan election process, but the alternative is, and there's never been a model that's come up in Pennsylvania for this, the alternative is what we see on the federal level, which is what we call merit selection, or, you know, appointment. But those appointments that take place even on the federal level involve political considerations. It just doesn't involve the voter. So, you know, there are always political implications, and there are always instances of conflict of interest that you're going to have, regardless of which system you use to get judges elected. And it's, you know, the idea of whether you elect or whether you appoint, it's kind of a mixed bag in a sense, because there are pros and cons to both ways of doing it. So I'm not sure that any one would eliminate conflicts of interest any better than the other.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any other questions for Mr. Neft? I've got one real quick.
Sure.
I always like to ask this of all candidates. Why do you think it's important for young people to vote?
I think it's important for young people to be engaged in the political process. I think you know, the vote is the only thing you have to be able to say to somebody, this is what I feel about a particular issue, about a particular candidate, and it's our right to do that. That's what makes it so important. And you know, I'm so gratified to see all of the students here today taking an interest in the judicial elections, and because it's one third of all of the branches of government, and it has an important role. You know, one of the things that I've talked about, it's interesting, on a prior forum that I was on, somebody talked about security of judges. And, you know, you go into a courthouse these days, you're going to go through a metal detector, and they're going to, check put all your stuff through an X-ray machine and everything to make sure you're not taking weapons in or anything like that. And, you know, I think one of the best things that the judicial system could do to eliminate security risk, and one of the things that we have an obligation to do, is to teach young people about our judicial system, why it's so important. And, you know, I would love to have a regular program in place that allows, students to be able to go to the courthouse, see a trial, see a hearing, see something to show exactly what's going on there. Because I think with that kind of knowledge, the students understand what the judicial system is, and they make sense of it. And, you know, it's really, you know, the judicial system is what we call sort of a counter-majoritarian branch of government that tries to keep the government from imposing views that go against the rights of the people. And that's what makes it so important. So, you know, that's why you got to go out and vote for all candidates, because that's your say in what you get to, in who you want to lead you in the government, in the courts, in the governor's office, in the legislature. You know, and you should educate yourself on all of the candidates, you know, and go with what your heart tells you should go with. But it's important to get out there and vote, because it's your right.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us today. Would you like to say anything else before we go?
No, just again, thank you. I'm so gratified to see all of you and the thoughtful and hard questions that you're asking of the candidates. It's great. And keep up the good work. And I hope to see you in my courtroom someday watching what's going on.
Okay, hopefully just watching.
Exactly.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us, and good luck. And we'll be out there voting. Okay,
Great.
So thanks, Maddie. If you want to pull up the closing slides here, and then we'll wrap it up here.
Thank you all.
Thanks for joining us. So on May 18th, and right now, if you were voting by mail, you can start voting for candidates for judge at the statewide and local levels, district attorney in Philadelphia, and city controller in Philadelphia. There's a lot of different sources you can find for trying to get the slide up here, but a lot of different sources you can find out more about all of the judges who are running, including the PA Bar Association. There we go. PA Bar Association. In Philadelphia, we have the Philadelphia Bar Association, which gives judicial ratings. Better Civics has a wonderful toolkit and provided some of the questions we asked today. And then voting by mail, you can still apply up until May 11th there, okay? And if you need to find your polling place right there. So next slide. And if you want to get involved in helping youth to get to vote in the city or across the state, please connect with our link there, paYouthVote.org, or on Instagram at paYouthVote. And I want to thank Maddie and Committee 70 for hosting this, and thank you to Mr. Neft and my students for asking some great questions today. Thanks.